we're a little short on a speaker, but they'll get here.
So I have a rose.
Otherwise, Wayne's going to be in the end all and be all. It's a little housekeeping here.
And they come around.
Again,
so
we've got
often.
WestRock cleanup Saturday mornings. The rest of this month, it's the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th at 8 o'clock. But please check the website or the Facebook page, because it could get changed to Sunday if something better comes up on Saturday, or it rains. And Tuesday, May 25th, there's going to be a Zoom earthquake preparedness training. If you're interested, check the Facebook page or email Char and she'll get you how to sign up for it.
There is information on the table that PBAM gave us. If anyone's been arrested, there's earthquake preparedness stuff
Yeah,
over there.
I was just segueing into that. It's a little pocket. It looks a little pocket thing that gives you the basics on how to be prepared for an earthquake. I won't follow that up with the often repeated joke about that. And so much for that stuff. Wayne is here from WestRock to talk to us about what does and doesn't go in recycling and what our recycling program in Portland is all about.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. We're happy to see you.
I'm glad to be here.
And he also supports the LNLA.
Well, is everybody okay if I just pull my mask
Yes.
down so I can?
Yes.
I've been back. I got it early because I said because I'm a first responder, which is true. But first of all, thank you for what you guys do every weekend, and the rain and the shine and the snow and the junk and the wind and the blowing.
Yeah, the wind's the best.
Oh, the wind, that east wind and little pieces of shredded paper. It's a nightmare for us all, right? But it's so much better since we quit using that stupid compactor. But thank you for your support in just helping keep the neighborhood cleaned up. It's awesome. And, I know that we've changed a lot over the years, and we finally got, I'd say, inside the fence line to a reasonable degree.
We can talk about that.
And stuff, that was last meeting. Please. Things have changed a lot. What you guys do comes in and just puts the icing on the cake, and it looks awesome. I just love it. On Monday mornings, if I come in on a Monday, I've been working weird shifts with COVID and all that stuff, but it's working great for us, and I hope it's working for you guys.
Yes, sir.
Works for us.
Cool. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, not just because I like talking about myself. I'll pass these around, and I'll keep one of them. Oops. And I'm gonna put my business cards. I got some up here. You can call me anytime. I do strongly suggest email, and just remind me how I might know you, especially if we haven't met and I don't know your name. Just say, hey, I'm from the neighborhood association. Send me an email. Phones are great, but email's so much more efficient. If it's something we need to talk about, I can certainly call you back. I started this crazy business before I started losing my hair and it went gray. And when I was 20 years old in Eugene, Oregon, my first job in recycling was while I was in college. I had finished a full term, and it's like I'm going to take a term off. It was kind of one of those term off things. I took 2 classes. The guy that was going to school full time had developed, this was in 1983, 83. He had been doing it for a little while. In 1983, this guy had 2 one-ton cube vans, just like a van with a cube on the back, the van cab. And recycling was still in kind of its infancy, especially in the commercial world. And he had 4x4x4 boxes built on pallets, plywood built on pallets, and they put them around at hundreds of places around Eugene, Oregon. Restaurants, small businesses, alleys, you name it. And we literally drove this one-ton cube, 2 of us, because we had 2 of them, ran around Eugene, pull up to this bin, get out of the truck, put the door up, and it was supposed to be flattened and not have dead cats and dead chickens in it. I won't go into those stories. and it's supposed to be flattened, hand throw it into the back of the truck, build a little wall in the back. I was really proud because I was really good at the little wall piece. And you know, when you open the door and you get back, all you see is a wall of flattened cardboard. Backed up, have you ever seen a grocery store baler? You know, just one of the little 60-inch downstroke balers. We back the truck up to that and start hand throwing that loose cardboard in, pull the screen down. If they hadn't bypassed the safety switch, which we finally quit doing, and push the button, compacts it. The truck would hold about 2 tons, so you get 2 pretty good bales out of it. You have to pull the truck forward, tie a bale out, and pull it on a pallet. And it was very, very, very manual. But it was my first real job that actually supported me, bought my top ramen and little pieces of cheese. That's kind of how it was back then. I did that for about a year, and then because I was doing the truck thing, I got trained in the trucks and kind of graduated up to bigger trucks. And one of the guys that was hauling truckloads and semis out, I got to know him. He taught me how to drive this twin stick 1963 Peterbilt, and I did truck driving for a while and got back in plant. So I've been working in this crazy business forever. Became a supervisor, worked my way up years, and I kind of got to this level. And when I was in my 40s, I'm going, I just don't want to be a corporate person. And you know, granted, I work for a big company, but I kind of like being under the radar, and I like people, and I like running equipment and being in charge of equipment. It's like, you know, if they let me stay there, I'll stay there, unless they're going to have to fire me this time. So I've been in this business for a long time. Back even in the day, anybody ever tied up a bundle of newspapers? And you put it at the curb? Mm-hmm. Well, those used to literally get picked up, put in a separate bin, taken to an actual regular old-fashioned recycler without a sort line. They'd have bins of newspapers, bins of aluminum, bins of tin, bins of cardboard. And then it took a while before we could do plastics because it takes up so much space. And then, and I'll just be honest, this is my opinion, and I can't speak for WestRock, but just having done it for a long time, the bigger recycling companies lost control of the supply side when the garbage haulers said, you know what, we're going to be the recyclers, and because they've got access to almost all the recycling. And it kind of changed the dynamics in the marketplace. Then the other thing that changed probably 10 years after that is all the office paper that, you know, like the international papers or warehousers used to do in WestRock, Rockton, Smurfit used to do it too. Did a lot of office waste with a lot of white paper, colored paper, stuff like that. We also, the bigger companies, because they're also capital averse and spending money, chose not to get into the shredding business or the mobile shredding business. You know, I ran a couple of plants with physical shredders inside the plant for a while, but it's really hard to sell that when you can watch it. Well, you think you're watching it being shredded outside your door. You know, depending on the company. You know, there's some pluses and minuses to all that. So then the recyclers kind of lost control of the office paper. So now it's like, okay, if you know the waste haulers and you know the shredders, there's all your paper. You know, and then there's obviously some larger commercial accounts that work, you know, to be able to take it out of print shops and stuff like that. So it's, you know, I've watched it go from the curbside with newspapers and tin cans going into a separate bin into the, you know, the $300,000 garbage truck slamming 1,000 cans a day, you know, with the recycling or the garbage. I worked in the garbage business for 2 years, mostly because I never had and wanted to see that side of it for a while. And I learned a lot about how big garbage companies operate, and you know, it's push, go, and that's why the garbage.
So how much is actually recycled?
What's that?
How much is actually recycled?
Out of the curbside?
Out of any of it?
Oh, it's a very high percentage.
Is it? Because I heard the
Very
plastic wasn't recycled.
What's that?
I heard plastic really wasn't
Well,
recycled.
plastics, okay, let's put that in the context of the volume.
Okay.
Okay, the plastic, I'm just going to throw some real average numbers out. Mixed paper is about half the curbside material. Cardboard's probably another 30 or 40%. So we're all the way up to almost only 10% of the volume. Out of that, by weight, you've got aluminum, and tin cans and the scrap metal, which we can talk a little bit about that. When you get to the end of that, there's not that, there is some trash, and it's about 15%. No, that's of the out, no, I'm looking on the wrong
Is that
end of that
garbage?
equation. But there is garbage in the curbside, so once you get that out, there's the plastics that's left that doesn't really get recycled is mostly a factor of the size of the screens at either a MRF like ours or just whatever the processing capability of an end customer, and every single one of them is different. And now the one thing I would lobby everyone to think very, very hard about. I'm not anti-environmentalist by any stretch of the word, because that's kind of why I like this business so much. I do work for a big company that's got a little different perspective on that, but I've been able to merge those two things to keep my sanity in my career. The really hardcore environmental side sees one yogurt cup go in the trash, and it's a travesty. I get that, I really do. Because if I put the effort to rinse this thing out and walk out in the rain of my garbage, my recycle bin, and put it in there, dadgummit, I want to see it go get recycled. I get it, I completely get it. Some of them are so small they go right through the screens and become trash before they ever get out the other end of the building. And that's why a lot of the people are saying now, if it's not the size of your palm of your hand, it's probably not going to make it to where you think it's going. So there's a little bit of natural, let's call it shrinkage inside the system. That part of it is really small. It's the really small stuff. Historically, some companies used to sell what they call a 3-7 plastic mix. And that's what got, I think, the municipalities really excited about, hey, let's just recycle everything plastic if we can put this 3-7. Okay, first of all, the numbering system is nothing more than a very, very general guideline. And just because it's got a recycle symbol doesn't mean that much either. And remind me, and I'll come back to that. But to answer your question, that 3-7, buyers used to buy the 3-7 because there was enough contamination of 1s and 2s, the PET bottles and the Tide bottles and the milk jugs, that they'd buy it, sort it, and throw away the rest. Now that's what some did, and I think that's some of the things in China that got Chinese recyclers and West Coast recyclers in trouble. That's created some of the problems. You probably heard about the national sort with China, and China's cut off all the waste, most of the waste products going. And it's been a good thing, really. It's been painful to adjust, but our industry did it to ourselves. China did it to themselves. We all played this game together. They just said, I'm done, and okay, so let's adjust. There's some natural shrinkage, which I will talk. I will talk with my hands. Okay. So draw some pictures about kind of how our system works. But, so yeah, plastics is hard, and so I'll come back on the plastic symbol a little bit. And I knew this when I worked in Eugene. I worked for Weyerhaeuser at the time. So, the big green tree growing company, right? But it was a great company, and they really had a good recycling system and a good recycling process before they sold them all to International Paper. And I left like a week and a half before they sold it to go do another recycling job. Zach. I can't remember Zach's last name. He'd probably be 100 years old now, but he was, and I mean no disrespect because I've got a tie-dye shirt at home that I wear. He was just your quintessential old school hippie recycler from Eugene. I love the guy to pieces. He would come into our plant because in Eugene the Santa Pac C&D MRF and the Weyerhaeuser recycling facility at the time were on one building out of a cul-de-sac. The Lane County Transfer Station and Bring Recycling was on another one end of the same cul-de-sac. So I mean, you could come down and you could talk trash and recycling for hours down there, just in the end of this one cul-de-sac. So Zach would come in and he would I don't know where he found stuff. He would bring in little pieces of stuff and sit down in my office. And I say this completely endearingly. He drove me nuts, but he really made me think a lot. Because he would bring stuff in, he'd set it on my desk, and after about 2-3 years of this, I got kind of wise to his ways, I mean, and I finally got to the point where I was able to explain it this way. He says, look, Zach, everything in the universe is recyclable. Everything. I don't care what it is. You can figure out a way to recycle carpet fibers. Probably this is probably not old enough to be asbestos, but whatever the styrofoam stuff is on the ceiling, the bricks, the paint, you can probably figure out a way to do it. But unfortunately, we live in whatever economy it is in the world, you got to figure out how to do it in a manner that's economical, that works for the greater economy, whether it's more like a European, slightly more, I'm not even going to use the word socialistic, but just more whatever European governments are more like, because their recycling's a little more regulated there than it is here. If it's like, even if it's like that, or if it's even in an extreme, which we're not, completely free enterprise capitalistic system, because we're not that extreme, because we do have regulations and EPA and all that stuff's good. Regardless of the system, you got to be able to do it economically, right? Because it's just not going to happen unless somebody's paying for the work, because work costs money, right? And that's one of the biggest things I learned from Zach, is that, yeah, everything is recyclable. And yes, that one little piece of plastic you brought in today, I'd say, Zach, you get me a semi-truckload of baled material like this, I'll find somebody to buy it. But I'm not paying for it because I don't know what the price is yet. If you can find me a market, or you find me the material in a context that I can get it sold, I'll do it. As long as it's legal and safe and there's not an environmental issue with it. But that's a good example. That's kind of an extreme. I mean, Zach got me one day though. He came in, he had all of this, well, and we can talk about the frozen food containers at some point. He came in and he showed me this box that he had been working on for a couple of days. And I looked at it and I go, Zach, what in the heck are you doing? And he showed me this, he goes, look, I got the poly liner, the little plastic laminated poly liner off of this Lean Cuisine box that I had for dinner. And I looked at him, I went, he goes, will this make this box more recyclable? I said, yes. He said, absolutely yes. And I'll say that in public on the 5 o'clock news. Yes, that would make that box more recyclable. But now you got trash, but the box would have been trash at that point. He said, fine, throw the poly away. He goes, is it recyclable? Give me a truckload of baled poly liners that you got off. I said, how'd you get this off? Because my lab is like the bathroom sink at the office where you go wet the paper to see what you can do with it. Or, God forbid you do what I used to do, is put it in my mouth and try to get it straight to figure out what's going on. I learned the hard way. But so we went through all this. Exact. How'd you get that paper? I said, I filled up my kitchen sink and I put all my boxes in. I said, you wasted how much water doing that? I said, you got to be kidding me. He goes, yeah. I said, you do what you want with your time, but how much water did you waste? So we're always bantering back and forth about this stuff. He goes, I got it done. I got the poly off. I put the poly in the trash. I put the boxes in my box, and I got my scoop out, or my jug out, and I went and watered my flowers and my plants with it. And I went, all right, you win. So everything's recyclable.
Maybe on the handout that comes out with the new calendar every 6 months that most people don't look at the pictures that they send you.
Yeah.
If it explained that those can't be recycled because there is a plastic liner in it, maybe people would be a little more understanding about
People
why.
like you probably would. I'm just gonna. Okay, you're gonna get another story. So
If 5 people paid attention,
Intelligent people.
that's 5 more people than what aren't paying attention and
That's
throwing that
true.
crap in the recycling.
You're right.
We already know.
But
It's either that or
unfortunately,
we need recycling cops.
yeah, I volunteer.
Seattle apparently has them.
Okay, another quick story. A garbage company I work for that will remain nameless, before I got there, unfortunately, had a fatality at a transfer station. And it wasn't the company's fault or the county's fault where the transfer station was. A mother and son were dumping into a pit. You know, you've probably seen those transfer station pits. The son moved the truck, mom was in the back, hit the brakes and dumped her in the pit, landed on her head.
Oh,
That was terrible and tragic, and I'm thankful I wasn't there for that. It killed her. But because of that, the company was required to put up more signs. And I was there, you know, a year after that. And I'm going, okay, so the safety guy comes, and I said, yeah, I know what happened, and you know, I'll do whatever you want me to do. He goes, okay, well, you need to order these numbers of signs and put them in these places, and we're going to go mark them. I said, fine. I said, and I can take all these other old ones down, right? And he goes, no, you got to leave these up. I said, they don't look the same. They look like garbage now anyway because they're too old, and some of them are somewhat contradictory. He goes, it doesn't matter, don't touch them, just put these new ones up, because these are the ones the lawyer said you have to put up. And they said, don't take anything else down, because then that'll confuse the people that are used to those. I said, but this one says this, and this one says that, and they're not 100% contradictory, but they're not the same. That story only to say is, the more information you give people sometimes, the less likely they're to look at any of it. And that's why one of my things that I've always pushed, and I think I can say this publicly, is just make it as simple as possible. And the intention, and this will get us kind of maybe more into the topic, the intention of curbside residential recycling is not to capture every single conceivably, possibly recyclable item in the world. It's intended to capture that, you know, you ever heard of the 80-20 rule? 80% of the effort to get 20%, or 80% of the money to get, the 80-20 rule. You know, it's an inverse amount of effort to get the biggest bang for your buck. The biggest bang for your buck is newspaper, cardboard, junk mail, Tide bottles, milk jugs, tin, aluminum, PET bottles. What am I missing? And in the city of Portland, small amounts of scrap metal. That captures out of a household, out of a residential household, 98% of everything is recyclable, right? I mean, if you really think about it. If it's a paper product, it can go. Does it have a sticky? Yes, who cares? Does it have a label? Who cares? Does it have a staple? Who cares? I mean, we're at that point, finally, in recycling. I can't tell you how many times people said, do I have to take a staple out of every piece of paper? No, I don't know who ever said that. It's crazy.
back when this all first
It
started,
did start that.
you had to take the labels off your tin cans. You had to take the windows out of your envelopes, and if there was a sticky address label on it, you had to cut that off too.
And that-
so I have a relative who puts her recyclables in her dishwasher and washes them before she takes them and puts them in her car and takes them to the recycling center. Because in Scappoose, they don't even have recycling.
Yeah.
Well, she has read what we're supposed to be doing, and she has morphed that into.
And that's a great
Love it.
example. That's part of the reason I wanted to tell you why I started hauling cardboard in a one-ton truck, is that was in 1983. Technology, recycling, at recycling plants and at paper mills have changed drastically. I mean, financially, the cost of it's exponential. It's astronomical how much money paper mills have spent putting in equipment to try to get our garbage out of their recycling. And you know, I spend my entire day trying to get our garbage out of our recycling and sorting the commodities to the best level that we can, you know, that makes sense and that makes money for our company and provides the waste hauler and the city with the means to be able to do that. And granted, we're not the only one in town that does it, but no matter what anybody says, we all pretty much do the same thing, and some of us are a little more high-tech than others. We're going to become a little more high-tech here pretty soon by the end of the summer. And that's good. You know, you can't get any help because nobody wants to work, or there's just nobody to work. I don't know which one it is in Portland. And I get that. You know, who wants to stand at a sort belt and go, she loves me? No, I get that. It's not the funnest job in the world. So things have changed a lot. I mean, even, this is going to date me, in 1992, when what used to be James River opened what is now the Georgia Pacific Mill in Halsey, Oregon, to run office paper, to make pulp, to make either wet lap for paper, or they run it across the yard and make tissue out of it. You know Northern Tissue Products? you use some of this stuff. But you didn't know that, right? So they make tissue. That plant, when it opened, was looking for what, in our Northwest market, was the first time we really had what's called an office pack grade of paper, which the intention was, from their point of view, was 80% white ledger paper, which is what this would be. 20, some, and then the rest of the combinations would be some envelopes without stickies and without plastic windows, and at one point without yellow sticky notes on them. It's like, how do you fix that in a recycling plant on a onesie, twosie, she loves me, he loves me not? It's almost impossible. We worked, and because Weyerhaeuser at the time had the contract to supply the majority of the material, we worked with them, and they finally said, how come you're not getting us any material? I says, because you can't get it like that at the price you're willing to pay. So we don't want to pay anymore. I said, what if you guys, or we did, or somebody, we did something to be able to run more material with a little more, just a little bit more contamination with the sticky labels and the plastic window envelopes and the Post-it notes. The Post-it notes, that was just insane for a while. Oh, you can't put Post-it notes. You can't put enough Post-it notes, plastic window envelopes, or mail with sticky labels on them anymore in any market on the West Coast or the export market to bother anybody if it's going as an office pack right now. Because the mills they spent the money to put in the systems that will de-trash the sticky stuff and or the plastic windows. And I think on the West Coast, nobody's using chlorine. Don't quote me on this. I don't think any West Coast mills any longer, maybe not even in the U.S., are using a chlorinated bleaching process in recycled paper to take the colors out. Most of them are peroxide based now, and it's a little less efficient, a little less effective, but you can still get a white sheet if you put your snake oils together right in a paper machine. You can get it to look right, and it still looks bright and white, and you're not going to go, what's that little mark on there? So it's...
Is that the same as paper towels?
What's that?
Paper towels, do they bleach paper towels?
The white ones are bleached,
Okay.
and the brown ones are not.
Right.
Which, I would do some paper grade training at master recyclers things. I'm not going to remember them off the top of my head, but you can ask a piece of paper 7 questions to get really, really close to knowing what it is. Just one of them is it brown or is it bleached? Okay, cardboard is brown, and bleached is anything that doesn't have brown color in it. And then there's that in-between gray, which is a newsprint-based thing or something where they mix a bunch of stuff together. But like I said, I could bore you all night long talking about paper grades. But any questions before we go through this real quick? Yeah?
Why can't you put paper towels in?
Paper towels have a shorter fiber. Some of them even have what's called wet strength in it to keep it from falling apart when you get wet, which means the more wet strength, the less likely to pulp, or the longer it takes to pulp, and the longer it takes something to pulp, which that will answer the question for the food boxes too, because the food boxes some of them have the poly liner, and then some of the ones that look more recycled and more sophisticated with regular printing underground, they actually have a lot of wet strength in them, because if you can't tear them real easy, like a paper bag, it's got wet strength because they got to stack up in a box, and you got to stack the boxes and boxes and boxes on pallets and trucks, and if the paper doesn't have enough strength, it's going to collapse and hurt somebody. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yes.
You got me all excited about wet
Yes.
strength. Oh, with paper towels.
Paper
So it's the same kind of concept. It's just it's one extreme or the other with paper
Okay.
towels. It's either going to obliterate in the hydropulper, and the fibers are just going to wash out, or it stays in the hydropulper so long that it just ends up going out in the trash.
Okay.
What about the brown paper towel?
Same problem, except
Okay.
one of them's bleached and the other one's not.
Okay.
And it depends. No, that's a good question. That's a great question. So in the city of Portland, and I'm not going to speak, well here, I'm going to answer one question that I know everybody will ask. What do I do? What am I supposed to do? The short, easy answer is go on, either call your local garbage hauler, whoever you're paying to haul your trash, and say, what do you want in your recycling? Or find their website, it'll tell you. Every one of them's a little different. I think what we're talking about
And it's only the commercial ones. They use a different company for their rental houses than they do in the mobile home park.
Okay.
And it's the park that's got the weird, we don't do this, that, and the other.
Well, and I'm not making any judgments on multifamily housing. I lived in it myself. Multifamily housing is usually picked up by a commercial recycling truck because it's got the front loads and it mixes it with the cleaner, high cardboard.
They have cans.
They have cans?
Same roll arounds, they just have more of them.
Usually multifamily places have a significantly higher contamination rate. So I'm not going to speak for them because I don't know even which company you're talking about, but they probably are going, look, we want to get the recycling out of this multifamily location. Just be super strict on saying what you can take, because when I worked for the garbage company down in Salem, it was like, one of the drivers had complained, said, I can't dump this, and I was an operations manager, I had my little pickup truck, my little blinky light, and go look at the container. It's like, I know by the color of the container that one of these is supposed to be trash, but I can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
That.
Welcome to my hood.
Yeah. That's our hood.
That's true, it's your hood too.
Let's see. So first of all, for what is and isn't recycling at your address, even if the person across the street's got a waste management can and you've got a Republic can, and somebody else has got a Waste Connections can, or somebody's got a Clackamas garbage can, just ask the hauler. And I can kind of explain why they're not identical, and that goes back to some of our capitalistic free enterprise thinking that everybody does what they think they should do to make the most money at a given time, or do the least work to get the most money, and whatever they can negotiate with their franchise agreement with whomever they have that franchise agreement with. And there's also some level of, I'm going to do what I want to do anyway, and if the city's not going to punish me for it, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to say who I think that is. So that's the generic, easiest answer, and I could have probably got up and said that, and we'd be done with recycling. If you don't know what you should do at your address, ask your garbage hauler. And if that doesn't make sense, ask for their recycler. Their customer service people are usually pretty good, but they usually also have somebody that's a dedicated recycling expert. Ask for them. And if you don't like what they say, call me and I'll tell you to talk to them and do what they say, but I might be able to explain the nuances of the difference that they might not be able to. Paper. Okay, I work for a paper company. Basically, generically, if it's paper and it tears, as opposed to some of these, waterproof papers, it just won't tear because it's got some kind of vinyl coating on it. If it's paper and it tears, extremely highly likely that it's recyclable and is not going to be that big of a problem. Then you go, well, how come I can't put my frozen food boxes because I can tear them? Well, because that's a little special, because we know it's got wet strength or poly liner on it, and that's why I think the city of Portland says, yeah, just don't do this. And if one gets in there, it's not the end of the world. However, if everybody in Portland put every single freezer box in their recycling tomorrow, somebody's hydropulper in Longview, either WestRock's, Norpax, I don't think Weyerhaeuser's got one up there, or GP Toledo, somebody's going to go, oh, my hydropulper's choking today. Or why do I have 15 extra 1,000 tons of trash this month? That would be why. Okay, shredded paper, just do what your hauler says. I'm not going to argue with them, but I'm going to tell you, shredded paper that comes in a bag's probably not going to get broken. It's going to probably get pulled off. If we have time, we're going to open it and throw it in the paper pile. If not, it's going to go in the trash. Because it weighs 5 pounds or less. It probably weighs 2 pounds, right? If you're that worried about it, bring it in and just dump it in the pile. I can't do public, but find one of the recyclers that can do public recycling and just say, can I dump my shred bag? Most everybody else will do it. Like I know Far West has door trade. We don't, because it's not on our license with Metro. Or pay the shredder to come pick it up. But, you
I'm gonna start
know,
bringing you my bags.
what's that?
I'm gonna start bringing you my shrubs.
Bring me, and give it to me so it doesn't get lost. I don't want you to walk around the plant, but
Oh, do
Well, I'll
you?
just go stand by the ashtray. Somebody will come and say, hey, what's up, man?
if that works, just don't tell everybody that it works, because then we'll have to do it for everybody, and there's gonna be another worse traffic jam.
I pick up on 101st. There's 27,952,000 tons of shreds
Yes.
on that rock.
Yes, there is, and you guys are almost, and by the time I retire, you might have it.
Cleaned up.
That flower bed in industrial stores, I just. Okay, so paper,
So I
newspapers.
have a question for you
Yeah.
on that flower bed. Do you have a relationship with them that would allow someone to cut all of the low shrubbery out of there?
I could ask.
Because it would look better and it'd make life easier for us.
Yeah,
Trying to do
well,
what we
next
need
time
to
I
do.
go over
Go
there,
down
I'll
there
and buy
after
stuff.
dark.
And when I go over there, I don't know where everybody in
Send
the
that
office
homeless
is.
guy
Finally, the
over
guy that
there.
owns it comes out and says, what do you want? I'll ask him.
Okay.
Cardboard, now, you can get all kinds of crazy definitions of cardboard. Flattened cardboard boxes. Do not use wax-coated cardboard. Take out food containers. And it says here, or pizza boxes. I will only argue one point with the city of Portland's pizza box thing. I don't know who said it, and I don't remember when, but it was like 10 or 15 years ago. So I don't want all those pizza boxes with all that cheese on them. And that was like right after, I think it was one of the Northwest paper mills before WestRock had paper mills in the Northwest, said, no, we don't want that. Okay, well, come on, really? But that was kind of in the context, in that transition from curbside pickup, from the she loves me not, he loves me not, they love me not, days of recycling individual commodities versus just throw it all in the bag. I think that was a casualty there in the thinking. I don't know why the city of Portland says that. I've talked to Bruce at the city of Portland. I sat next to him. I said, don't you ever say a pizza box not recyclable. WestRock makes gazillions of them and you make me look stupid. It's all in fun. That part's all in fun.
Yeah, we put them in the food bin.
Well, if
Or the yard
it
debris.
works for the compost, that's okay. But I will say, I will not speak for the garbage haulers, but I will speak as a recycler. There's not a reason in the universe to not put a pizza box in your bin. Now, use some basic judgment.
All right.
If you've got 3 pieces of pizza stuck to it, and there's cheese and gunk hanging off of it, I mean, by the time it gets to me, it's not going to smell like it did when I left your kitchen table, okay? Use the perceive the smell test. You can do that with the milk jugs too, but I'll take all the milk jugs. The price is great on that stuff.
Squish them.
Okay, flat cardboard boxes. Also included in the mixed paper, I've always affectionately called it cracker board, cracker boxes, cereal boxes. Doesn't have a lot of wet strength in it. It's low-grade paper because it's got a lot of filler in it. It's got a lot of starch in it. It's got a lot of groundwood fibers, which that's another side grade. We have the bleached and the unbleached. Then you have groundwood, which is like newsprint. So I'll bore you to death, but thermomechanical pulp versus kraft pulp, which is chemically separated fibers. Thermomechanical is just ground up, which is where the old term groundwood came from, which is a newspaper. It doesn't distill the lignin out of the paper. That's why your newspaper turns yellow is in the sun. That's the sun reacting with the lignin. You can put this out, and it might dry out and crumple up, but it's not going to turn yellow, right? There's no lignin in this because it's all been cooked out of the wood. I told you I can bore you to death.
So cereal
If I see you not enough.
Cereal boxes are recyclable in the
Absolutely.
paper? Okay.
Yes.
But not cracker boxes?
No, cracker boxes are fine. I just call it cracker. Cracker
Okay.
boxes, cereal boxes are all the
All
same.
right.
You just got to be careful that it's not a frozen food
Right.
box. I know that gets really into the minutia.
And take out the plastic bag.
Please.
Oh, yeah, take
Oh,
the
please.
plastic bag out.
Please take the bag. Yeah, they used to be wax paper, but that ain't wax
Yeah.
paper anymore. Plastic tubs and bottles. I'm not going to argue with them. I could all day long on some of that. The picture's perfect. I've always used, which is not completely consistent with this, if it's got it, now this is, I'm gonna contradict myself. See, even recyclers contradict each other all the time and contradict themselves. If it's got a number and a neck, so if it's got a number inside a recycling thing and a neck, it's probably gonna get recycled. Highly likelihood that it's gonna make it through the system, and if the machine doesn't get it, a human's gonna go, oh, a number and a neck, it's gonna go. Because it's easy to visualize a number and a neck. Tubs, kind of hard. Can you tell, anybody in here tell the difference between a polystyrene, a polypropylene, and a PET
No.
container? Okay, and granted, I'm supposed to be the expert. I don't know how to teach somebody that without having handled it for 20 years, okay? That's, there's some optics out there that can do that, and we're looking at some of that too, that's kind of cool. Whatever they say, plastic tubs and bottles, I always use number and a neck. If it doesn't have a number and it doesn't have a neck, at least go look or go ask.
So why are the takeout containers, they're giving us all these clamshells, why aren't they recyclable?
Part of it's the cheese factor.
Oh, okay.
And this is where I can talk about paper all day long. I can't talk about polymers all day long. I can only do a half a day on polymers. The type of PET that's in a PET clamshell is a little different than the PET that's in a number one Coke bottle. Okay, they're chemically a little different. And if somebody's buying bales of PET Coke bottles and they've got a third of a bale of PET clamshells in it, they're going to go, I can't do anything with it. I'm either going to sort it and send you a claim, or I'm just going to reject the load. You can put the container back on the boat, and for $20,000, I'll take it back. I've only had to do that once. It didn't only happen once. If you do it twice, I'd be looking for work. That didn't happen here. It didn't happen. So, the thing about plastic, this is really clear, and I agree with it 1,000 million, 2 million %. Don't include plastic bags, lids, or take out food containers. Okay, the lids, because the lids are small, we're just gonna, okay, why do they use polypropylene lids on PET bottles? I'll never know. They're not compatible. But I don't think you can make a lid out of polypropylene. So we've got this whole culture, you get into the culture and the sociology of all the recycling when you get into that. Why is it okay to have a polypropylene lid on a PET bottle, and it devalues and makes it harder to recycle? So some of this, I promised I was going to use this.
That's right, better.
So at our plant, I'll try to draw this picture in a line, just to this will answer some of these questions. So we've got a big bin at one end of the building. That's 15 feet tall, like 8 to 10 feet wide, 25 feet long. So it's a huge, it's probably 100 yards, it's not 100 yards, it's probably 75 yards of cubic space. And that's what we take, the curbside material. So you see your curbside bin, right? That goes into a truck that takes about 5 tons at a time to us and dumps it on our floor. So that's 5 tons, and then we put it in a pile that by month end is probably 250 tons. A lot of stuff, right? You've seen that.
All outside right now.
That's a different project. That's a different project. So it goes in this bin. So this isn't going to look like what our system looks like, but then it goes on a vertical, which I mean it goes up, conveyor belt. Well, first of all, it goes through a big metering wheel, which is like a big trommel. I mean, the thing's huge. It's probably 10 feet in diameter, and it's 8 feet wide, and it's got spikes on it. It looks all nasty, and it tumbles, and it starts pulling the stuff out of this bin onto this conveyor belt to go up. Can you kind of visualize that? So it goes up, and then it goes onto our sort line, and the very first thing coming out of the sort line, we call it the pre-sort, and we could put up to 12 people up there, but we usually have 3 to 6, depending kind of on what, we just look at the pile and go, it's either really dirty or it's not so bad, and then, there's a judgment call in there. If it's not so bad with really bad stuff, we'll put 3 people up there. And their number one thing is to protect this screen here. They're pulling big chunks of film. You've seen, stretch film. Well, when it comes in commercial quantities and we don't want it, we told people we don't want it, but we still get it. I mean, it's like giant bundles of the stuff. And people put, they clean out their garden and they've got 600,000 cubic or square feet of black stuff. I'm telling you, I've seen, if it's been thrown away, I've had to deal with it. In the recycling plant, not in the trash. So we're pulling that kind of stuff off. This is where the engine blocks and most of the dead cats and dead possums. That's where we get those, okay?
That's supposed to be in the garbage can.
What?
She said that's supposed to be in the garbage can. The dead cat and the possum?
I'm gonna stay out of that one. Okay, so in this machine, it's a screen. It has rows of shafts. I mean, there's probably 30, 40 rows of shafts with what we call stars. And they look like a nice little Star Trek looking thing with, they're solid rubber and, they're kind of, they got teeth and they're on a long shaft and they're probably, 50 of them on a shaft, all in different configurations. And each one, and there's the 30 shafts with 50, however many stars on them. Stars is a brand name, I think I'm supposed to call them discs in public. That bumps the material. So what we've pulled off here goes forward. So basically everything but the really big trash is going forward. I'm going to run out of space, so I'll have to go down below. So at this point, we have a little discharge place, and then this belt runs this way. It's coming at us. And I'm going to use a technical term, OCC. It's old corrugated containers. It's the brown cardboard boxes. So that's the OCC, screens off, comes out, and just goes into a pile here. And when I first started working there, this looked just as bad as the other stuff. We got it cleaned up, and we got a pretty good product. Then it goes to another screen. So discharges cardboard here. There's another screen with slightly smaller discs, not stars. And that one discharges on a belt. And that is, here's a real technical term, this is big paper. Big paper comes out here. And if we tweak the angles and the speeds of these, we could get newspaper out. But there's not a newspaper mill in the Northwest anywhere, so it just goes into mixed paper now. I can talk about paper grades all day long. I can do that for weeks. So the big paper comes out, that goes into a pile. Then there's another small screen. We got another belt that's a discharge. And this one takes all the small stuff, and that's smaller. Well, this is another technical term, small paper. I know my handwriting's terrible. So the small paper comes out. So the waste paper comes out into this pile. So that's the sorted mixed paper, somewhat sorted mixed paper. Because most of the contaminants are come out of this screen, and they keep going. And most of those contaminants, contaminants relative to paper, what do you think they are? Plastic, tin, aluminum. Oh, the thing I forgot to say is right here, the material comes off of this conveyor belt here, and the heavy stuff drops, and there's a big metal nasty thing down there that breaks the glass. And then there's a discharge that goes the other way, but I don't have enough room to show you how that works, but it goes out and up the other side into a glass discharge place.
So Wayne,
Yeah.
does the garbage companies not do any sorting?
No.
Really?
Don't you stand out there and watch them when they come and dump
Yeah, it just
your
gets dumped in the
bucket?
truck.
Well, no, I thought it went in their truck, but then I thought it went back to their facility
they're
to
going to
sort.
Oh, no.
They're
No?
going to him.
Okay.
No. Garbage truck goes from the curb
To
me.
you, okay.
Or for my competitors.
Okay.
Competitors, partners, friends. I mean, I've been in the business so long, it's crazy. I mean, Far West, Pioneer, EFI, IP, we've all known and worked with, for, against, and partnered with, and competed and bought and sold from each other for so long. It's an antitrust nightmare to even have a meeting. but we survived it. So the next one, that is trying to get all the rest of the garbage, and then there's a little, so these discs get smaller and smaller the further they go. This is trying to get the glass and all the small junk out to go to, well, if we kept going that way. Then we have it's a green eye, I think I can say that. It's a green eye, that's an optical sorter that runs everything else through. And it's the coolest thing, and when I worked in the glass recycling business, it was even cooler than this, but this is still pretty cool. goes across the belt, there's a camera, light bars, takes a picture of it, and through the magic of digital technology can figure out the difference between HDPE, PET, garbage, paper, and it goes across, because this is the green ice sorter, so that's a conveyor belt. It goes across, but the lights and the camera are up here. I mean, this is all a huge machine. And there's air jets down here, blocks, long, 10-foot wall of air jets. And somehow the camera knows that this piece that it took a picture of here is going to be here in X number of milliseconds. And that air jet turns on and goes boop, and it pops it on to a belt that goes to the PET. So that's an optical sorter. We have one optical sorter. And that gets, because PET is the largest single commodity of plastics, because nobody wants to go back to the store and return and get their dime, right? Well, they do now, but forever when it was a nickel. Then we have another manual line here, and we call that the bottle line, and we've got multiple sort stations, and that's where, there is some residual paper and trash and miscellaneous junk on there, but it's mostly containers, and that's where we look at it, and that's where we're doing the he, she, they love me, he, she, they loves me not, with extra PET, because the machine's not perfect, it will miss some of it, so the first station is, I'm going to get the rest of that PET, and then we usually have two people trying to throw milk jugs, because milk jugs are pretty high value, and then somebody throwing colored HDPE, which is like Tide bottles, the non-opaque colored materials. And then, guess what's left? Okay, so we've done paper and plastic, what's left?
Metal.
Okay, so then we've got a belt-over magnet at the end of the bottle line that's, it's probably 10 feet wide, was 10 feet long across 90 degrees on the belt, and then it's that particular one's probably about 4 feet wide, and it's a belt, conveyor belt on rollers, that's got an electromagnet in the middle, and when that magnet's on and that belt's going, it sucks the tin and small pieces of metal that we didn't get on the pre-sort line, sucks it up, and then when it gets over to this, the magnet stops and it drops into a bin. It's really kind of cool. You can tell I was the guy with the Tonka trucks and I love machines. So what's left? We got rid of the steel.
Aluminum.
Okay, then the next station down, which I could draw all that, but it's funner to tell you. So, has anybody seen an eddy current work?
A what?
An eddy current. It's crazy, it's fascinating. So you know how a magnet works, right?
Right.
The magnet made sense, right? Yeah. So the piece of tin goes under the magnet and the tin goes up onto the magnet, right? Or onto the magnetized belt and thrown off. Eddy current, I'm not a technician, so I can't explain how or why. Eddy current's got a spinning magnet and what's called a head pulley. So a pulley's, the end of a conveyor belt, and you got a head pulley and a tail pulley. And the head pulley can be at the tail, did you know that? The head pulley is the one that's got the chain that's driving it that confuses me to this day. But the head pulley on this one has a spinning magnet inside the cylinder that is the head pulley for the conveyor belt for the eddy current. And that spins, creates a negative, or is it a positive? Creates a charge opposite of what a magnet would do, and it repels aluminum.
Repels.
And even if it was like a small piece of brass, it would probably do that too. So if it's not ferrous, somehow in magic electronic world, this spinning magnet inside this head pulley will fling the aluminum cans off of this falling belt into another belt that goes for one person to quality check, because the aluminum's got to be pretty clean. And then everything that's left goes straight down. Used to go in the trash, and I started, I'll toot my own horn on this one. We were looking at the trash, we were looking at this belt going in the trash, that's like 70% paper. This is stupid putting this in the trash. It was easy to put it in the trash, but we figured out a way to move some conveyors around. So where are we? At the end of the sort line, so then we had the metal belt, and then we had the aluminum belt, and then everything else went down. This return belt is at the far end of this, goes all the way back up to this small paper discharge belt, and then we put people up here to try to pick the plastic and the garbage and the rest of the diapers that we missed. Most of the dead cats are gone by then.
I want to go work there.
Yeah,
And then, we are going to spend some money and put some things in to improve the quality of the mixed paper that comes off because,
so
you don't-
why do so many shreds get out of the facility? What's going on there?
No, that's a good question. And now, prior to 2019,
Uh-huh,
most of 2018, we were using that discharge that when it goes into the compactor that I was just saying goes back up here.
right,
Okay, so a lot of that stuff had a lot of shred in it. I mean, it's still bad, but
Right.
it's way better than it used to be, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you gotta give me a little credit.
Unless the wind is blowing.
What's that?
unless the wind is blowing.
Yeah, the wind blows, all bets are off. But the shredded stuff was outside, and even with all the chicken wire and stretch wrap and everything we tried in the world, the wind would catch that on the east end of the building and just blow it.
And that was what was coming out up by the roof, that discharge that was coming out and coming down.
Yes,
That's where
that
that-
was a really bad place. Now,
And you're not really doing that anymore?
no, not that part.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we have done is we've figured out how to wine and dine our competitors' shred trucks, the guys that have the shred trucks. Okay, I don't know why most shred trucks pulverize these days. And they make little tiny pieces.
Yes, they
Well,
do.
you know what size they are, right? They're that size
Yeah.
instead of shredded paper.
Right,
Shredded paper
right.
is bad, but it's not as bad as little tiny dime-sized pieces.
It's
right?
because they're cross-cutting it, because that way the bad guys can't put the shredded pieces of paper back together again to get your account.
It's harder to put the shredded paper. Yes. So,
But try and pick them up with a grabber.
yeah. That's why we have that Billy goat back. That helped a lot. But I know that's not the
That's why mine-
yeah that's still our biggest challenge. And every time, I mean, I just want you to know, just for the record, are you videoing this?
Yes.
Yes.
This is off the record for WestRock. My boss is on board with this. My boss's boss is on board with this. We're constantly trying to sell corporate. It's like, look, we love this neighborhood, but we need more space. And we, I've been there for 3 years, and we've pitched probably 5 properties. And the problem is, it's ridiculously expensive to move. And if you move to a new place, you're going to pay that rent, and we own
Well,
the
I
building.
understand there's gonna be a lot of vacant land over in Freeway Land, which is now Prologix. I keep
Oh, I
forgetting
know.
this.
That
But I'm
was-
sure they'd be happy to invite you over because you have, and also a very
can't-
aesthetically appealing business.
I can't talk about that in public. Let's see. Okay, so we talked about the metal cans. Okay, the metal cans, like you were saying, some haulers say no aerosol cans. We don't ever want aerosol cans.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that's a little crazy doing aerosol cans. But if they're empty, if they're truly empty, and you can't hear anything in them, we can get them recycled. Well, we recycle them anyway. We pull them off of the line. Okay, so the other thing that this bottle line does is that's where we're pulling batteries that aren't supposed to be in there. I mean, the batteries scare me to death. NiCad batteries, you run over them with a forklift or a front end loader, you get sparks. You ever dropped one or broke one? I actually had, this is going to tell how stupid I am, but I accidentally touched I had a cell phone that had a bad battery, I was screwing around with it, and I got the pulse to touch, and the stupid thing blew up in my hand. It didn't hurt me, and it didn't hurt anything, but if that spark was in a pile of shredded paper, could have made a bad day for a recycler and a neighborhood,
Been there, done that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I have too. I was there for that. So, aerosol, we pull that stuff off. We pull the batteries off. We pull you see, the other thing that's not supposed to be in there is easy off and pesticides. So we have to deal with that. And that goes into the no
So
garbage.
is it just paint, aerosol paint?
If it's empty.
Right,
If
but
it's
no pesticides
Please,
regardless of.
I don't care what these guys say. It's like, don't make any recycling. Deal with the pesticides and the easy off. It's nasty, nasty, nasty chemical stuff that is just, and we have to process it. I mean, we've got an environmental shed where we have to we've got all of these regulations and stuff, and we have to do it just exactly the right way to deal with it. And, you know, some of it is hazardous waste, and we have to deal with it with Metro like it's a hazardous waste.
How about hairspray?
It's hairspray. If it's empty, it's okay.
Okay.
Basically, if it's easy off or oven spray or pesticide, I would
No.
beg you, please just put it
In the garbage.
empty in the trash. Either way, I have to deal with it like it's full. I say I, it's my crew.
What do they do with it if it's got stuff in it?
We have, well, the pesticides, we save it separately in a separate container, which is labeled appropriately and legally, and we have, let's see, I think Thermofluids takes that one.
The skull and crossbone on it, or what?
Oh, yeah, it's labeled correctly.
Yes.
And, you know, and we deal with it legally and appropriately. And then the pesticides and the easy off go together in those. We just, the paints and the stuff that aren't empty, we have to empty, and we've got a little emptying process. But you know, that and propane tanks, don't put the little propane tanks, please. Now you're gonna get me on my soapbox now. Why would somebody think it's okay to put a propane tank in a recycle bin that's gonna go in a Packer truck that can go kaboom? Anybody seen a garbage truck? Okay. Everybody got a computer? You know what YouTube is?
Yeah.
Google garbage truck fire. There's 100 of them.
You
Garbage
don't
truck.
have to do that. You can just drive around the neighborhood and look at all these burned out RVs.